This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the 2018 3rd Gen iPad Pro from Apple. This is the 12.9-inch model. Now it's available in 12.9-inch like last year, but a lot smaller footprint, thank God. Oh my God, the old one was too big to handle easily. And the 10.5-inch has morphed into an 11-inch size. That is physically the same size, but because they got rid of the bezels, well, of course there are still bezels, but they're really teeny like that, they could keep the same size but give you a half-inch larger diagonal display. That's not all that's new here. This is a complete physical redesign, and for the better, besides the size improvements here. We have straight edges now. It makes it a lot easier to pick up, especially when you're dealing with the 12.9-inch of old. That kind of narrow taper thing, you have barely any edge to pick it up with, and it gives you a place to grip, which is important because those bezels are so much smaller. It's not like you can wrap your hands around without accidentally do something anymore. Also, we've gone from Lightning. Oh my God, can you believe Apple actually did this and went with a kind of standard for their iOS-based products? We went from Lightning to a USB-C port, which goes with Apple's trying to push this as not just a consumer tablet sort of experience, but something that could stand in for your laptop. How true is this, and how good is that USB-C? We're going to talk about that now. It's interesting what Apple does when it comes to the iPads. Typically, they come up with a really nice design. They stick with it for many years, be it iPhone, at least 2 generations there, sometimes up to 4 generations. With the Macs, usually they get about 4 or 5 years out of a design. With the iPad, boy, they are evolving it quickly, maybe as they try to figure out what this is supposed to be. Is this a high-end consumer tablet / something for your photo and your art kind of work? Is this a laptop stand-in? Who knows? Anyway, the redesign itself is gorgeous looking, and I didn't think this would be possible because the last generation looked pretty good, right? But as one of my tech-loving friends said when they came over and saw it, they're like, instantly, the previous generation just looks so dated. So that's what happens when you give a very good redesign with the angular, modern sides with the curvy corners that I think a lot of people like on it, and the reduced bezel size. Like I said, there are still bezels there, of course, but they're a whole lot smaller. So visually, it looks quite nice. Is it a pain when you're handling it? A little bit, because you wrap your hands around the side of the tablet. Like I said, the square edges help, but I find myself being very careful not to thumb things when I'm carrying it around. The USB-C port is both exciting and frustrating, like so much that Apple does these days, right? So USB-C, you can use those nifty little USB-C docks and clip-on things that you might have had for a MacBook Pro or a 12-inch MacBook, that sort of thing, or even a PC, you know what I mean? There's a bunch of those. You can see some of them on screen right now. But there are limitations. Ethernet will work. Go figure. I mean, who really was dying to have Ethernet? Display out works. Up to 5K display. Apple says probably their own LG display that we don't have, but I've tested with a 4K LG display, and yes, it does work. It's going to depend on the application as to whether you just get mirroring of the iPad screen or a second display functionality. Probably art and graphics programs are going to be more likely to set up that second display functionality, but that's still cool, and that makes it feel more like a laptop stand-in when you can do that sort of thing, doesn't it? Also, you can plug in your camera. Does anybody really do that anymore? I mean, we all just take the SD card or the compact flash card, if you have an older camera, out and you stick it into your computer, don't you? But you could connect the USB cable and connect your camera up. The one glaring thing, the frustrating thing that is not here, because the file system is still so locked down, even though Apple gives you a rudimentary file browser now, is no flash drive and no SD card access. If you stick in an SD card or something like that from your camera, yes, it will automatically want to import the photos into the Photos app, and that's not really what I want. I don't want to bring all of those and clog up my iCloud storage and all that sort of thing. I want to pick and choose the files that I want to edit right now. Thank you very much. I want easier file transfer going on, and we still don't have that with iOS 12. There are some third-party apps, like I use File Browser. It's very good. I can connect to our network attached storage, NAS is called, and I can actually put files up on our home server and get them off and get them on. Like I typically start a lot of drawings on Procreate, and I want to finish them off in Photoshop later on a quote-unquote real laptop, so I throw them up on the server. But other than that, if you don't have that set up in your home, you're using Dropbox, maybe you're using iCloud, is all these things that just kind of make it a little bit frustrating. So using a flash drive, for example, or even an SD card to transfer files would be a no-brainer and something I expect to see from something that's supposed to be a laptop stand-in. With USB-C, go with the way of the headphone jack, just like with the iPhone. Yeah, right. Well, so they want you to buy some nifty AirPods, not so cheap there, or use an adapter, USB-C to 3.5 millimeter if you have your favorite set of high quality headphones, if you're connecting it to stereo out. It is what it is. Happily, the quad speakers are still there, quad stereo speakers on each side as you're holding it in landscape mode, and they are still absolutely awesome sounding speakers. How they get so much bass and volume out of a product this small, I don't know, but it makes it delightful to watch movies and music videos and all that sort of thing. In terms of performance, there's new stuff too. Isn't there always, every generation? We have the Apple A12X Bionic CPU. Fancy name, fancy performance here. The thing is insanely fast. If you look at the Geekbench 4 benchmark, which is cross-platform, available for Macs, for Windows PCs, for iOS, for Android, the numbers are astounding here. It's about 70–80% faster than the previous generation iPad Pro, which was already plenty fast. Nobody said my iPad Pro is so slow, right, from the last generation. But the benchmark scores on this for the multi-core are just about as high as a 15-inch MacBook Pro Core i7 to Core i9 even. Okay, if that wasn't good enough for you, the graphics benchmarks using the 3D Mark Ice Storm test, because for some reason Slingshot just crashes on the device, twice as fast as the outgoing iPad Pro, which again was no slouch. Nobody complained about the performance there. So this thing is fast. This kind of tells me, you know, the rumors that Apple's going to be starting to use their own CPUs for MacBook Pro models in the future instead of Intel. This tells me bring it on. They are ready for it here. The thing does not even run hot. It doesn't break a sweat. The performance levels on this are astounding. The question is, what are you going to do with this thing that Apple claims is going to compete with an Xbox One? I mean, there are a lot of great iOS games out there, and many of them are optimized for iPad and stuff, and probably I think we will see some really graphically sophisticated games developed for the iPad if this thing sells enough. It's an Apple product, it probably will, but in the price range that we're talking about, $799 for the 11-inch starting price and $999 for the 12.9-inch, we'll have to see just how many that they sell. And that's for the 64 gigabyte models with Wi-Fi only, no LTE. If you want LTE, you know the story. It's about $129 more. If you want more storage increments, you can do that all the way up to 1 terabyte. You can easily spend $1,500 on this thing if you start to trick it out that way. So that's why I say, how many are they going to sell? We're going to have to wait and see. But wait, there's more pricing-wise. There's a new Apple Pencil, Apple Pencil 2, number 2 pencil, whatever you want to call it. So they're not cross-compatible, the old pencil and the new pencil with the old and the new iPad Pro models. The technology is the same. The writing and drawing experience is the same. I believe that they probably technically actually are compatible, but Apple has an automatic pairing system for the pencil to work with the device, and they've chosen not to enable that cross-generationally, if you get what I mean. So the new Apple Pencil ergonomically is much better and delightful. No more sticking the Apple Pencil in the iPad's butthole to charge it, right? Was that ever a good idea? Not really. You could use the USB adapter to do it too, but this time around it magnetically attaches like a Surface Pro, but it one-up Surface Pro because it wirelessly charges when you do that. So it's brilliant. It clips on pretty well, so you know where did I leave the pencil now? Clip it on the top of the iPad, and boom, it charges up very quickly. Besides that, you have one flat edge, which makes it a little easier to grip. Besides that, it's still white, but it has a slightly satin finish to it, so it's not slippery. My old Apple Pencil, I skinned it immediately because very, very slippery. Lastly, it's not quite as long as the old Apple Pencil, and the length of it, while it might have seemed nice and elegant and all that sort of thing, made it feel kind of unbalanced and a little heavy towards the top end. So physically, in terms of technology, this is where it should be. But again, the writing and drawing experience are identical. While we're talking about doodads and add-ons and all that sort of thing, there is the Apple Smart Keyboard cover, which I like better. Some of you don't feel the same way because it has that yoga problem. When you flip it over backwards, you feel the keys against your fingers, which is true of so many 360-degree hinge Windows laptops. I've gotten used to it. It doesn't really bother me. It's a lot more stable. The last one kind of drove me crazy. That whole origami experience, flippy floppy, make little triangles on the back, figure out what positions it would go in. I liked third-party keyboards better, and I'm sure Logitech will have keyboards for this model as well, but this one is a lot more stable. You don't have as many positions to stand it up, and you have 2 upright positions, and you can flip it backwards to use it as a tablet, but it's a lot more stable, it's a lot more lappable. It's still a little bit top-heavy, particularly if you're talking about the 12.9-inch, which is the heavier of the two, and you can see how much they weigh on screen right now. but it's usable, and it's not as terrifying an experience. The bad news is $179 to $199. It's still not backlit. There's still no trackpad because iOS does not support a trackpad. Who needs the trackpad? You're saying, I have my finger. I have an Apple Pencil, which I spent $139 for. A good thing you did, too, because you don't have to reach as far, because Steve Jobs used to always talk about gorilla arm, reaching out and touching the screen being tiring thing. So pencil gives you an extension there. But when it comes to editing and selecting text, just bolding a paragraph header in Word can make you crazy, because you press, you wait till it says select, then you drag the thing, then it goes whoop, whoop, and you select paragraphs by accident, and this whole thing stands in the way of making it a fantastic text editing experience when it comes to those sorts of little things. A trackpad would totally fix that problem, but we don't get one. Not now. The displays on these remain stunning, gorgeous, true motion, 120 hertz, P3 color gamut. Really, some of the nicest displays you'll see on any kind of mobile product, including laptops. So no complaints there, only praise. Reflectivity is really well controlled, which is a fantastic thing, especially compared to some Windows 2-in-1s. Even Microsoft Surface Pro 6 is a glare monster compared to this. The resolutions are almost identical. For the 11-inch, it's changed just by a few pixels in one dimension only, and you can see the dimensions on screen to help you out there for the resolutions of the products. But a weird thing happening here, though, probably because of the fact that, and we'll get into no more Touch ID, we have Face ID, because they've added the little swipe up bar to go home again. Some third-party apps right now, not the built-in programs, not even all third-party programs, like Procreate doesn't have this problem, but they have a little bit of a black border around them, which is probably more pronounced on the 11-inch. We have the 12.9-inch only in-house. And that means that third-party apps are just going to have to update to use the entire screen. It's just a little weirdness right now. So that Touch ID thing, gone. Just like the iPhone X, that's what happened here. So to make those bezels really teeny, there's no room for a fingerprint sensor anymore on the front face. So we have Face ID. I like that. I'm not complaining. I love that on the iPhone. It starts to seem weird to use other phones and actually have to touch a fingerprint scanner anymore. And unlike the iPhone these days, the XS and XS Max, you can use it in any orientation, because with tablets, you tend to hold them at awkward angles when you press the power button to unlock it. The camera will tell you if you're touching it and obscuring it. Again, small bezels as possible. So say you're covering the camera, so you can move your finger. But it doesn't matter what orientation you have it in, it works. It works well. It works when I take my glasses off. It works when I have my glasses on. I don't have a beard or anything that could make things a little literally fuzzy for the camera, so it works. It's a 7-megapixel front camera, by the way, so it does those portrait effects if you're using it much like an iPhone does. And you also got Animoji, Memoji, all of that sort of stuff. So that stuff's nice. Rear camera, 12-megapixel, 4K video up to 60 frames per second, does slow motion to 40 frames per second at 720p, HDR, all of that sort of stuff. Very capable camera here. A little bit better than the last generation for sure, yeah. More changes here. You get a higher wattage charger in the box, because iPad Pros with their huge batteries took forever to charge. So now we're up to an 18-watt charger. I would like to see even more. Yes, you can use your MacBook and your MacBook Pro USB-C chargers with this. I used the HP Spectre Folio 13's 45-watt Ultrabook charger. Boy, did that charge fast. It's loud, it's okay, it's safe. Really nice. I mean, it went up like 10% in 15 minutes. I was like, yeah. So that part's nice. What's not so nice is they still give you a shorty cable in the box. It's a 1-meter cable, about 3 feet or so, which is just pretty much insulting and a way to upsell you into their 2-meter cable. Apple claims 10 hours of use time, and they're usually pretty accurate with their claims, and I'll go with that. That's so far what we've been seeing. In terms of the battery capacities, you can see those on screen as well for the 2 units. All right, so here's the whole discussion that happens every year when a new iPad Pro comes out, and exacerbated this year because the prices are so high, especially if you take that 12.9-inch base model iPad Pro that I picked up and you throw in that $200 type cover and that $139 pencil to try to turn it into the perfect laptop replacement, you spent a bit more, just a little bit more than you would spend on this new 2018 13-inch MacBook Air base model. We'll just stop. We'll think about that for a minute. Okay, so can your iPad Pro, be it 11 or 12.9 inch, replace this? Oh, hell yeah. Oh, absolutely not. Why am I saying this? Because it depends on you and on your use cases. For a lot of people who are light computer users at home, assuming this is a personal purchase, and maybe you even have a work computer or you have a desktop PC or an iMac or a gaming laptop or something like that for when you really need serious chops on something like that. Yes, it could be for those who are doing that. I will often use the last generation iPad Pro at night on the couch happily and just not even turn on my PC because I can do my email, I can watch Netflix, I can do Word, I can do Excel. You don't get all the features though. Photo editing, this is not Photoshop, but yes, you can do light photo editing. You can do iMovie. So at a basic level where a lot of people are at, yes, it actually could do all that. So for those of you who just want a touchscreen Apple experience, which you're not going to get with any Mac so far, yeah, it can do those things just fine, elegantly. In fact, oddly enough, the type cover actually feels a little bit more like a normal keyboard than the butterfly keyboard because the keys move actually a little bit more and they have a slightly more tactile feel, though they're not backlit. So why can't it be your laptop replacement? If you're a power user like I am, I mean, much as I have an iPad Pro mostly for art and I like it and for content consumption, it can't replace my laptop because I do Photoshop, I do photography, I do art where I need to do finishing touches with multiple layers and adjustments and all that sort of thing that are much easier to do on a more capable program like full Adobe Photoshop. Well, I'll wait and see what happens next year when Adobe has their fancier Photoshop for the iPad. I need to do web development. I need Dreamweaver. If you need Xcode, for example, you're going to have to do that through remote connection to your Mac. There are limitations for people who need that. The web browser is pretty decent, Safari, but for some of you who are using content management systems and other intranet kinds of things, it's not always up to snuff and compatible. You know, if you need Java or something like that, you don't get everything yet. So that's why I say yes, that's why I say no. Only you know what the things that you need to do with this product. But just in case you want to hear more about this, because some of you probably do, we are actually going to have not only a review of the 2018 13-inch MacBook Air, but we're going to do a smackdown between the iPad Pro 2018 model and that 2018 13-inch MacBook Air. So that's the iPad Pro, again, available in 11 and 12.9-inch sizes at a cost that's going to give you a heart attack. So I have a love-hate relationship with this product. I do have the last gen 12.9-inch, mostly because I'm an artist and I love Procreate and the Apple Pencil for drawing. It's one of the best experiences you can have with a pen, digital pen, even if they call it a pencil, folks. But at the same time, these things have gotten so crazy expensive. And like I said, this invites all the, well, is it a laptop or isn't it a laptop? Because it costs as much as one. So you can be frustrated with the price and then deal with some of the limitations of iOS. But taken empirically in terms of the hardware and the performance that we don't even know what to do with it at this point because there's nothing taxing enough for it, there's a lot here. This display is lovely. For those of you who are fond of all things Apple and you always want a touchscreen Mac, this is kind of the closest you're going to get right now. Like I said, the drawing is unparalleled. The only thing that is equal to this, and maybe still a little bit better, would be Wacom Cintiq products, which are specialty art products. So for those of you who want something way more affordable than the Cintiq line, and they can do other things, well, this is it. For photo editing, well, it's a shame that the new Adobe Photoshop CC that's supposed to be pretty much the same from PC, Mac to iPad won't be out until next year. It looks very promising. That's pretty nice too. And obviously you can do your office tasks and that sort of thing. But multitasking, but iOS. You see what I mean? Love-hate relationship. But overall, it's a stunning piece of hardware. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos and thumbs up if you like this vid.